Yeah. Yeah. Come. Yeah. Yeah, come on.
Hello, can anybody hear me? Yeah.
Alright, somebody decided to pull out the internet modem, and then I had to try a new mic, so... Can everybody hear me now?
I can?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah.
So,
Everybody,
you know,
am I coming here?
Yeah. I can hear you, man. All right, so this is on. It's finally working for everybody, and it is recording, so we can just get into it. So I wanted to bring you guys together. I actually had a request a while back to do a talk with TFM and Six Senses at the same time. So this is kind of fulfilling that request, but also and I want the topic to be basically the issues of the sort of, I don't know, the current situation in MGTOW, where we have the I guess the extreme and moderate camps that are popping up, and also the race issue, because I know that Jaye and TFM did a couple of videos just recently on that fact. So I guess why don't we go into the moderate versus extreme thing and start with that. So I don't know, let's just start with the TFM, because I know I've discussed it with you, right?
Yeah. I think all the issues are related, because you have MGTOW is basically like there's a very low threshold to be MGTOW. You basically just have to be anti-marriage, anti-gynocentrism.
Yeah.
But you have all these other groups kind of hitching their wagons to it. Like you got the TFLers, you got the disaffected MRAs, and then as any movement kind of gets more popular, you're going to have people who kind of come into it, and they may or may not agree with the actual supposition of the group. They may just be trying to grow their own group. So when I look at like the moderate MGTOW, they come off as either TFLers or disaffected MRAs. So they're trying to kind of steer MGTOW closer to the MRAs. And then when you got the like the black nationalists and there's also white racists of all stripes, and they're all trying to, like, early on I had some white racists on my videos talking about white solidarity and all this bullshit. So there's a lot of other groups that kind of pop in, kind of see if they can subvert this group to theirs to kind of grow their numbers. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they go away, sometimes they don't. But I
also,
think
how many of them are trolls? This is the thing. There was the first black exodus of MGTOW about a year and a half ago, where a few black MGTOW decided to exit, and from whenever they said there was white supremacy in MGTOW or racism, I was one, and there were a few others that would ask, well, point out who it is, show us a channel, show us a comment, and they refused and just left. And from what I've seen, a lot of the time, it's just troll channels in their comments, finding their sore spots, and exploiting them for drama entertainment.
I actually experienced that too. I can't remember, was it Monkey's video? I can't remember now. I made a comment, like, because some guy was saying people were being racist, and I'm like, really? Well, who? And it never came back. He never answered.
No, the majority of them are just people in the comments section. Like, I don't think they have channels. I don't think they're prominent. They are part of the community, quote unquote. But, like, if I said their names, I'd have to look it up. But if I said their names, no one would know who I was talking about. Like, they don't have any followers or anything. They're just people who kind of pop in, watch the videos, leave comments. The only channel that I could think of that does say racist stuff is Sexy MGTOW, because he's like very anti-Semitic, he's racist. He's very out there. Like he's kind of.
He's a weirdo from get to go. Okay.
Yeah.
I got off his channel ages ago when he was doing his whole stint when he was in university, and he started writing like with marker on feminist posters in a university, and I thought, mate, you're at fucking ground zero. What are you doing fucking with people? You just... And he ended up getting kicked out of the university, according to him. I mean, we've only got him as a source, but yeah, he just went off and just started drawing on their posters and trying to refute a few things, and then started writing like cunt and other things. And I just thought, okay, this guy's going to make a train wreck of himself. Let's walk away.
Mm-hmm. His thing is he deliberately provokes. Like he chooses hyperbolic language. He just does stuff. I don't know if he has like a large.
It's very much like Manhood Academy style.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I would agree to that. Like the thing is I have a soft spot for people like that who just say things and don't give a shit and try to get under people's skin. I think it's entertaining, but I can separate it. But he does it he chooses language to provoke a reaction, and then when he provokes a reaction, he kind of backpedals and no, this is what I meant. So you're stupid. But he knew what he was doing when he said it, and he got the reaction he was trying to get in the first place. So it is trollish, and he even admits that he's kind of active in the chans and all this other stuff. So he's very much from that culture. That doesn't bother me, but he does, like he had this one video about like how in sub-Saharan Africa, there's still people who make their homes out of grass and mud. And he's like, and that proved, that sub-Saharan Africans are stupid. It's like, no, it's because there's nothing but fucking grass out there. In Europe, you have like trees and forests and stone. And that's why you have like all the shit going on in Europe. In sub-Saharan Africa, it's grass and animals. So what do you think they make their clothes and their homes out of? Grass and animals. Like if there were trees and rocks in sub-Saharan Africa, they'd make their homes out of trees and rocks. It's not because they're dumb, it's because they're using the resources that they have. Yeah. And then he didn't have anything to say to that. But that's my point. He says stuff like that. And it's kind of hard to separate whether he's... But yeah, he's definitely... I think he would even call himself a troll if you asked him.
If he's kind of... Well, there's a couple users that I think... It's weird because they've kind of sparked a sort of extreme end of MGTOW, and a lot of people are trying to like say, I'm not with them. I'm not with them. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I don't really see a point in saying I'm not with them. I mean, that's the first mistake you can make. You go down a slippery slope of having to constantly prove that you're not affiliated with these people.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit, as long as you're not out perpetuating it.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't condone it. So you don't go, hey, yeah, that guy's got some good ideas, check him out. And if somebody asks you about them, you can say, oh, yeah, that guy's a bit of an idiot, a bit of a weirdo, ignore him. That's the bare minimum. You can, if you choose, go on your own MGTOW purifying crusade and try and get rid of them. But what's the purpose? What's the point?
Yeah, right. Hey, I wanted to actually ask Jay, because I haven't had him on one of these hangouts yet. And hey, Jay.
Yeah.
I usually ask most of the people that I talk with. First off, is like how you kind of came into MGTOW. So like how did that happen?
Well, I did watch a lot of content from Stardust and Barbarossa and Sandman and Sane Madman 103, and I watched a lot of Mark Rudolph stuff, even though he's not a MGTOW, but I agree with a lot of the things that he was saying. And in my personal life, I was always a MGTOW myself. Like, I didn't really date. I rarely would be around women. I would mostly focus on like trying to build myself up and not try to run behind women. But I was simpish though. There were times where I would get very simpish and I would get very disappointed. And I had to sort of just have a conversation with myself and try to figure out, how can I fix this? How can I stop myself from being disappointed, not only by my behavior, but my pursuit of women who really didn't care about me. And that's sort of how I came into MGTOW. It was sort of like a perfect fit for me being able to sort of, just get rid of this simpish behavior that I was displaying and know that I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only one who had dealt with this,
Yeah. A lot of us have, man. A lot of us have.
Yeah.
And and you've been around for how long now? Like over a year, probably.
I've been making videos since late November, December last year.
Oh, okay. So almost a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if when you first came in, did you notice any kind of tension between black MGTOW and white MGTOW at the time?
Not really, because I was watching a lot of black MGTOW channels, and they had a following. People were listening to them, watching their videos. So I didn't really see it. I didn't really notice it myself until this guy by the name of M came to one of my videos, basically saying that he was going to subscribe, but he didn't understand why black men were in MGTOW. That was probably like my first time really dealing with somebody in their BS. And that's when I sort of was like, okay, I'm gonna talk on, I'm gonna speak on it, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm just gonna sit back and see what happens,
Right.
But I haven't dealt really with it often, but I have had trolls. Somebody called me the N-word, but that was pretty much it,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, based on what Six Sense has said, I wonder how many of these guys threatening to leave are actually real.
Some like there have been a guy, a few people who are making videos who are starting their own movements. Those guys were never really MGTOWs, man. A lot of those guys who are leaving were never really MGTOW. True 40, I understand. Like I said, he's been talking about it more for months, so I understand where he was coming from. But some of these other guys, they just want to start their own movements. They were only in MGTOW to start their own movement. I got this idiot that's still making videos about me, so I'm sitting up here. I was a little pissed off before you called, man. I was like, man, because I just seen he's made another video about me, and then he's one of these guys who want to start his own movement. He basically, he would come around and comment and try to get people to come watch his stuff. And then once he started to build a movement, he started basically distancing himself from MGTOW. That's why I don't take those guys serious. A lot of those guys really weren't MGTOW. A lot of those guys are just fake. They're just frauds, basically.
Yeah, it's like they were just passing through.
Yeah, basically. These guys are part of the conscious community. I made a video on it, conscious community versus MGTOW. A lot of those guys are from the conscious community. They never were really MGTOWs.
What is the conscious community?
It's like the pro-black, pro-black, daishiki kufis, always talking about white supremacy and things of that nature. They're just Afrocentric. And a lot of those guys, they really do believe in that. And they saw MGTOW as a way to basically take black men who had taken a red pill, who were still in the learning phase, and say, look, you don't need to be a MGTOW. You need to come with us. We're better for you than MGTOW. That's basically what they did, or what they're doing.
I don't see, what I don't understand is how, at least from where I see it, how, isn't it possible to be both?
Because of the what's going on with police brutality and the Confederate flag fiasco, they're listening to a lot of the top tier pro-blacks who are pointing them in the direction of white supremacy is out here, and a lot of these white people are racist, and a lot of these guys have infiltrated MGTOW, and they've been able to convince a lot of the black MGTOWs that that there are racist MGTOWs out there, even though you don't really see them, that they're there. They're convincing these guys that they're there. And that's the problem I have with it, is that you're convincing people of something that's not even really there. It's there, but it's not blatant, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because I've been around for a few years now, and I haven't I haven't really seen that, man.
I didn't either, man. That's why when they're saying all this stuff, I'm saying to myself, what are you talking about? You know? And a lot of these guys don't even make videos.
Yeah, right.
It's just comment on videos. That's all they do.
See, this is the exact same thing that happened about a year and a half ago, or a bit earlier than that. The exact same thing. It was just a whole bunch of people started claiming that there was a bunch of racism and sexism, not sexism, just racism going on in MGTOW, and they never pointed to it. They just kept saying it's there, it's under the surface sort of stuff. And I was like, well, point it to me and I can deal with it. If you don't point to it, I can't deal with it. And one of the things that also annoyed me a bit was they keep forgetting that MGTOW is actually international and intercontinental. I mean, I live in Australia. There's not a lot I can do, or there's absolutely nothing I can do for the black American. Now, I can't even do things to help the Aboriginal community and change things there because they're very tribal, and some of their land I'm actually technically not allowed to go on. And I can't really do anything because if I come in, all I am is a white guy coming in and saying, "Hey, stop doing this behavior."
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
A lot of them they feel like that's a way to protect themselves.
Because and Sixth Sense is right. Like, it's very international. That's why I was always impressed by MGTOW in the first place, is because it was, kind of borderless in that sense. It's everywhere. So I mean, and everywhere you go, you have different races, different ethnicities, different cultures. And there's always going to be friction between different cultures, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about MGTOW is and the reason why it's an international movement as opposed to like, MRA. I think there are international MRA groups like between Canada and the United States, but by the nature of their movement, they're focused on changing the laws. So they have to be somewhat restrictive to one country because they have to change the laws in that country. Whereas MGTOW, we're more focused on like the bigger picture with gynocentrism.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and this is why racism is fucking stupid, is you look at the black community and you look at the problems, and they all come from like the women. And the women are the same in the black community as they are in the white community, as they are in the Asian community, as they are everywhere. So the issues don't change. The only differences between different communities is you have kind of like the traditionalism cycle, where you got like people, different cultures are on different parts of the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You have different communities that are farther along in the process. Like the black community is really fucked up because with the Great Society and the welfare and like the way black women just threw the men out for a welfare check and destroyed the family and started being single moms everywhere. But then you look at like the rates. I think in the black community, single motherhood is like 70% whereas in Hispanics it's a little over 50%, and then in whites it's a little over 33%. It's less, but the trends are going up. So you look at all the problems in the black community, and it almost invariably stems from single motherhood.
Right.
That's coming everywhere. Like the Hispanic community we're basically just a couple years behind. But as those numbers keep going up, it's going to become closer and closer to what we're seeing now. So it's like looking into the future. So to just write that all off as a racial problem is fucking stupid, because that problem is coming to all communities. It's just they're just further along in the process. But that's why the solutions need to kind of come to that community first, because that's where the problem is the worst. But if we just ignore it and write it off as someone else's problem because they have a different skin color, then when those problems come to the other communities, there's like, I can't remember the saying, maybe someone can refresh my memory, talks about how, I think it was from World War II, where they came for one group and
yes. The Nazis came for this group, and I said nothing. Then they came for this group, and I said nothing, and then they came for me, and then there was nobody to stand with me or for me.
Exactly. I can't remember what the groups were in that quote, but basically, like, if we just stand by as MGTOW, as men, and just let the black community disintegrate because of welfare and gynocentrism and all the other bullshit, it's going to happen to the Hispanic community next, and then it's going to happen to whites, and then Asians, and then I don't know what the fuck after that. But it's going to spread everywhere because it's the same problem. It's female nature. It's gynocentrism. It's a universal problem because we're all human beings. Like, the amount of melanin in your skin doesn't change your nature. So that's why racism is just fucking stupid in general, but especially in MGTOW or any sort of movement about men, women, and nature.
It's racism is used to deflect, to keep people off of what the true problem is. It's a way to keep people divided.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's unfortunate too because, I mean, you can see that kind of tactic used in the media a lot. To keep different classes and races sort of in constant conflict, and it's kind of sad to me that it has to leak over into MGTOW.
Well, I can see.
It's because.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I understand there are some groups that do benefit from keeping the races kind of against each other. You know, you have the politicians and you got the race hustlers and people like that trying to feed off of the animosity to get elected or get money. But if you're MGTOW and you're trying to solve the problem of gynocentrism and help men improve their lives, how does racism help you at all?
Yeah.
Like, even the biggest white supremacist skinhead in the world, but if you're trying to defeat gynocentrism, how does attacking black people help you do that?
Yeah, well,
like, that's what I don't understand.
Because you have illogical people who are running with that narrative in order to make themselves feel bigger because they don't believe that. They're just using that in order to build their audience or to get people to listen to them because they know that it's easier to believe in victimhood than there is to believe in, you know, it's not all that what you see it is, but it's easier to accept victimhood because they've been fed victimhood their entire lives. So to learn anything new would be, you know, something they don't want to do.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The victim narrative.
But even if you have, okay, let's just from one perspective. All right, so let's say I'm pro-black, all that stuff, and there's a white conspiracy to destroy black people, and then someone points out, well, it's your women that are selling out their men for welfare checks, destroying the family, raising all these kids on their own, fucking up the communities, and the criminals. It all comes down to single motherhood. That's the problem. Like, how do you rationalize that as that's white people and not the women? Like, I can't even comprehend the hamster wheel that it would take to come to that conclusion.
Because they don't want to critique the people they don't want to critique the women because when you grow up in a matriarchal society, you learn early that you do not critique the women. And that's what's happened to a lot of these brothers. They have just internalized not critiquing the women because it will reflect more on them to have to critique those women, and they don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do they just like not even think about the connections? They just jump from A to Z without even thinking about it? Because
they were raised by single mothers, man. Being raised by single mothers do a lot of damage to you that people don't realize, and it makes you like when you were raised by a single mother and you see her struggling, I guess, quote unquote struggling, you sort of pity her. You pity the women to the point to where you say, I'm gonna forget all the, the fact that you kicked my father out of the home for a check. I'm gonna forget the fact that you go from guy to guy and you're always in these hostile relationships. I'm gonna forget all that. I'm gonna forget the fact that you were very abusive towards me and other people. I'm gonna forget all that because you're my mother and I love you. And they will not critique the one female. The black community would be a lot better if these men would actually critique these women. They just will not do it. They will go to bat for these women. These women do not really care about them that much.
And that isn't that kind of gynocentrism in a nutshell?
Yeah. It's feminism too.
Yeah.
See, this is something women are particularly good at, in my opinion, is that they're able to spin it so that their negative behavior is either a result of you or of the circumstances that have been created, especially in single mothers, in my opinion. I see this quite a bit, is that they will essentially excuse their behavior. No, I'm stressed, that's why I hit you, and I'm stressed because I'm the only parent. There's always an excuse for the women, and we really want to feed into that, because then it's not bad women. Your mother didn't hit you because she was bad or because she was wrong. There was an excusable, and it lessens the pain that we have to suffer, or the child has to suffer. It's a way of defending ourselves from the pain we would feel in reaction to their bad deeds.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I have like a personal story about that, like, because I was raised by a single mother, a horrible one. I remember I was telling Ayam during our last interview how she abandoned me when I was like 12 to go live with my grandma, and I don't know, that really messed me up, but I was able to eventually process it, and I never excused her or blamed the third party for that. But I remember one of my best friends in high school, his parents got divorced too, but then his mom remarried, and the man she married was an alcoholic, and he pedestalized his mother, excused her, and his stepfather was abusive to him and his sister, but he never blamed the mother. And I sat down with him one day. This is even when we were both in high school. I'm like, your mom is enabling it. Your mom married this guy, chooses to stay with him, knows what he's doing. She's behind it. And he actually got mad at me. He's like, no, my mom, like, he had this fantasy of his mom not being complicit or an accomplice in the abuse. It can only be the stepfather's fault. His mom wasn't complicit at all. But she was, like, as an unbiased third party, I could see the dynamics, and the mom was basically using the stepfather as the bad guy. It was all the good cop, bad cop thing. But they were a team. Yeah. But he had those blinders on because that was his mom. And he couldn't see that they were both abusive to him, just in different ways. He only blamed this. Like, he actually fantasized about murdering his stepfather, thinking that if he just killed his stepfather, all his problems would be solved. Without like, I could see it, that the mom was right there with it. And if he had murdered his stepfather, first of all, he'd be in jail, and then she would marry someone just as bad. Yeah. So but I know what Jay was talking about with this going to bat, and I don't know. Maybe I just got traumatized out of it when my mom abandoned me. I don't know how to wake men, snap men out of that pedestalizing of women, especially their relatives.
Yeah. Well, I think MGTOW can offer up a bit of a cure for that, because there's a lot of guys that I've talked to casually or chatted with over the years that, kind of witnessed themselves breaking out of that hypnosis, So it can help.
Yeah, but I find there has to be some sort of big event. A lot of men end up in MGTOW because they're divorced, or that their parents generally went at each other. There's some big event that pushes them to finding answers, because this is the big difference between men going their own way and the average man. We're actually seeking answers. Everybody came here having some form of question. I've never met a MGTOW that didn't come into the community that just kind of accidentally stumbled in because they're watching funny YouTube videos about cats.
Right.
And that's and I really wonder if it's not a biological drive that is only going to be in a small percentage of men, or if it is that big sort of a wake-up event where your girlfriend walks out on you and takes all your stuff. Like here in Australia, you can live with a woman for 3 months and then you're technically married, whether you propose or not, and she's entitled to half your stuff. If she walks out, say 3 months or 6 months at the end of the relationship and she realizes she can take everything, that's going to be a pretty big wake-up moment.
Yeah. That's exactly the same in Canada, man. I remember when I was a kid just finishing high school, and I moved in with a girlfriend into a house with a girlfriend, and I found out that way that after, I think at that time, because I was maybe 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, I found out at that time that it was a year. And then every few years they reduced the amount of time, and now I do believe it's 3 months. All you have to do is be in a house, same address with a woman, and she's entitled to half your shit after 3 months, man.
Yeah. And I just tend to think it is that sort of big wake-up moment that just removes the veil. You can't deny it once you get screwed over pretty heavily. There's got to be something like that. It could start out with you're looking for answers in the case of trying to get women, so that you're trying to get laid, and you would generally progress to the PUA or the MRA first, and then you expand outwards. Because for me, when I got into the community back in, say, 2012, it wasn't feminists that were my problem, it was women. They were the ones causing me the most grief, because I was actively in pursuit of relationships and going, well, all the information I've been told is getting me zero or only negative results. So I ended up looking for answers, and that's when I ended up coming into the MGTOW community, because it just I came across the MRA community, but it was solely focused in on feminism. And I just thought, hang on a second, that I've never actually met a feminist I've met one in real life. And when you meet them in person, as long as it's not in a university environment, they stay very quiet about their feminism. So it's never been an issue with me with feminists. It's been female nature that's always been the problem. Yeah. Because...
Well, I wanted to kind of shift over to Jaye again, because I remember he was talking a bit about the black community and the women in the black community. And I don't know too much about that. And I've been out of North America for so long, and in Asia for so damn long, that I kind of lose touch of what's going on. But I mean, Jaye, is it as bad as they say it is over there with the black women in the black community?
I would say with most black men, they've dealt with women who just don't respect them. They don't like them. They really like to pick and choose the type of guys that they're around, that they pursue, and they're always disrespectful. You know how you just randomly you go into a store and you say hi, they don't say anything, and they give you the biggest attitude in the world for no reason. You constantly have to put up with that because you have melanin. And I don't know if it's just because it's us black men that they don't respect, but it's a high sort of superiority complex for a lot of them, because they like to talk about their degrees and how they're doing so much better. It's a superiority complex. They like feeling like they're better than black men. The feminism is so deeply rooted in women to the point to where they bought into it, and they believe that because they have education and they're better. They just feel like they're better. They feel like they can pick and choose whatever guys they want to be with. And if any one of us who don't fit their criteria even comes in their atmosphere, their whole demeanor just changes. And I've noticed that a lot. I've always tried to give them the benefit of the doubt, because like I said, I was a simp. But now it's to the point to where I'm like, whatever. I understand you a lot more than I did before. A lot of those other times, I would just give them the benefit of the doubt, but not anymore.
Well, I wonder how many black women actually identify as a feminist, because I don't really see a lot of them in the media.
You got to go on Twitter, man. Oh my God.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. They have this one chick named Feminista Jones. I mean, you just look at her timeline, it makes you want to vomit, huh?
Jesus. Yeah, Twitter's pretty bad for that, I guess. Yeah,
and these would be the same ones who are talking about Black Lives Matter, and they're protesting for black people, but the next thing that come out of their mouth is that, well, we don't need black men to do this. We can do this ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and you know another
they're like the number one sabotagers of black men. But that's my opinion.
well, and I've heard that before too. I've heard that stated before. So, I understand that it's going on. I don't get to witness it as much in real time where I am now. But yeah, I believe it. You probably know. There's some when I used to teach. I remember talking to students. I was teaching middle school, so I was teaching kids between, I don't know, the age of 12 and maybe 15, I guess. And I remember talking to some of the female students that were that age and how they were embracing feminism. This is in the middle of fucking Asia, man.
Yeah, man.
All because of Tumblr.
The independent woman disease.
It's pretty scary, actually.
You have to understand that women, they understand their nature, but they also resent it. They resent the fact that sexual dimorphism favors the male, and that they're largely dependent on men for survival, because they are weaker and smaller, and they hate that. Like, at the core of feminism is penis envy. In their perfect world, if they had a magic genie, they would eliminate sexual dimorphism, and they would make men and women equal physically and mentally, but they can't. So they try to use government to kind of tear men down, and this is really, speaking of the black community, all these programs that are designed to help minorities, like they always use that buzzword minority, all that money goes to black women, not black men. It's black women that get hired. It's black women that get the government grants and the scholarships to go to college. Those women, like in my MBA class, like a third of the class is black women. There's no black men. It's all black women.
Jesus.
And it's because like they're all getting these scholarships and grants. Because the thing is there's scholarships for women, there's scholarships for minorities, and the women take both. There's no scholarships just for men, but the ones that are for the minorities get gobbled up by the women. Because they're considered, like, you have, like, there's can't remember the word, the progressive stack. I think that's the term for it.
Uh-huh.
So you have different levels of oppression. And if you're a woman, you get bonus points. So it's like, oh, you're a minority, oh my God, you poor thing. Oh, you're a woman minority, oh my gosh, you're even more of a poor thing. Oh, you're a man, okay, well, you're not as oppressed because you're a man. So you got black men just getting shit on. And nobody wants to help them. And the government just turns their back on them and starts showering money on black women. And then, like what Jay was saying, they get this chip on the shoulder like they did something to earn it. Like, they're just getting money thrown at them by the government, and they think that makes them better than men. And then, you see, now they have a shitty attitude and all this other stuff. But it's like they didn't do anything to deserve that. They just, like, manipulated the system to kind of divert money that should go to the entire community. Like, if we're going to help a community, let's help everyone in that community. But it all goes to the women, and the men just get left out in the cold.
I don't know. I wonder.
And then they get
how much longer are they going to be able to use that narrative of women being so oppressed out of one corner of their mouth, and then out of the other they're just throwing money at them? I mean, how can you call yourself oppressed?
Well, it'll last until the money runs out. That's really the long and short of it. As long as there's now, the thing is oh, I'm sorry, Jay. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, so I just did that video where I looked at the statistics. So the black community is 13% of the population, whereas white people are like 65%. So and those numbers are going down. Like Hispanics are growing and stuff like that. So it's not always going to be that way. But as long as the black community can be sustained with tax money coming from everyone, it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. Now, like I was saying, the problems in the black community involving single motherhood and welfare abuse and all this other shit, that's going up everywhere. You have single motherhood rates going up in all communities. So as the rest of the communities catch up, we're eventually going to run out of men's money because men are the taxpayers. We're like 70% of taxpayers. So they're eventually going to run. They're going to drive all the men out of the workforce, give all their jobs to women. They're going to tax them out the ass. They're going to take away their opportunities, and they're eventually going to run out of their money. And when that happens, the whole house of cards comes crumbling down. But as of now, and the thing is, because the way the communities are structured, the black community can sustain itself as long as the government keeps giving them the money from other communities. They don't. The black women are right in a way. They don't need black men because they have the government taking money from all men to give to them. Now, if this were if the black community was its own country, it would have already gone bankrupt. It would, but when you destroy your men, you destroy your economic base. But because that community is connected to the larger United States, it can sustain itself off the tax base of all men. But it's like looking into the future. Like, you look at the problems of the black community, like, it really started in the 60s with the Great Society, which is this huge welfare expansion. So that was like 50 years ago. So you look at what's happening now, and then you go back 50 years, that's when it started. So you look at kind of you can actually track it on like a timeline. You can see little milestones of when it got really bad. And it's coming to all communities. It may be a couple decades, but we're going to be there too. All communities are going to be there. And when that happens, when each community destroys its men, just like the black community is destroying its men, the entire country is going to run out of money. And then everything's going to collapse at once. And it's going to make the Baltimore riots look like a pleasant Sunday morning.
So basically, once the welfare state reaches a climax and doesn't have anything left, it's all going to do.
And you know, when black men do try to gain control, black women can always use the police. They can always use the being able to get men incarcerated a way to sort of keep the men in line too.
That's true, yeah. It's
Absolutely. True. And I think that's actually kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like the racism is a deflection. Like, these men, they don't want to blame the black women for calling the cops on them, getting them arrested, setting them up. They'd rather blame the white cops, blame it on racism, and not on the black women. Because it's really the black women. If you really go down to the foundational level, you got the welfare, you got the cops, like the crime, the drugs. It all comes down to the destruction of the family caused by women embracing feminism and throwing their men out for a welfare check. And that's never going to change until that changes.
Well, and we know that. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, let me finish here. We know that single motherhood is a big problem, especially for young boys. Even if we consider the amount of them that end up in prison, So definitely, I'm on board with you what you're saying there.
It's
but
not
what
like... Oh, go ahead.
Cheers. What I see in the case of blaming white cops is that they get that reinforced by their community and by their black women. So if instead of blaming their women, they blame the cops, their community actually coalesces around them for a short time, and that's going to feel pretty goddamn good.
Right.
Well, because it's like every time there's the last several riots have been about some guy being killed by the cops or shot by the cops or something like that. But there's black men are getting killed every day in these gangs and drugs and all this other stuff, and you don't hear anything about it.
I think you do, but then you have the guys who are sort of leading the pro-black conscious community. They'll the people who are being paid by the liberal media to keep a lot of that quiet. They usually can calm that down. These pastors, these Al Sharptons, these Jesse Jacksons, those guys' job is to make sure that no one in the black community speaks about black on black crime. And like sheep, a lot of black people end up not really. They'll call you a coon if you talk about it.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
so we can't talk about black on black crime.
Yeah, if you watch Tommy Sotomayor, he does a bunch of videos where he just speaks about the problems in the black community, calls out single mothers, and you could see that he's calling it out. He wants to help, and he gets death threats and gets called off by other black people. And he's just telling the truth.
Well, this is sort of my point, is that when you call out your women in your own community turns against you. Whereas if you call out a group outside of your community, regardless of race or ethnicity, it's you get more praise, you get more of the pleasant feelings from your own in-group. They feed into the pleasantness, whereas if you turn to your group and go, hey, women are doing some bad stuff within our own community and it's causing us ills, then the women turn against you and the rest of the men turn against you, and then the next thing you know is you're outside of your own community and you got nowhere to turn. And a lot of human beings are absolutely terrified of that.
Yeah, I agreed. It's terrorism.
It's worse because it's okay. So you look at what women are doing in regards to divorce and the family court and destroying men's lives and making them wage slaves. That's horrible, and a lot of guys commit suicide over that. But if you look at the homicide rates in the hood, like people are dying like every day. Like people are getting shot and killed. Like people, it's a bloodbath. And it's like, I don't get this. I understand it in a way, but it's like, don't you see people are dying? Like, don't you think your feelings need to become subservient at some point to the fact that these men are being murdered every day? Doesn't that matter more than how you feel?
It's starting to happen pretty much everywhere. You have a lot of these single parent raised black males. You know, whenever tempers flare, guns are going to get drawn. But in the media, it doesn't fit the narrative, so they're not really going to bring it up because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah. There was I think Ayam, me and you were commenting. That one guy made a response video about my. Can't remember his name. He had like a bird avatar, but he made a response video to my video about League of Shadows.
Okay.
And he was basically, the whole video was him calling me an asshole.
I haven't seen that yet, man. I gotta watch it.
Yeah, I gotta see that one.
Yeah, send us a link.
Yeah, send us a link.
But okay, so his
I'll
whole
just get some snacks.
he was basically going through my video, and every time I was talking about how society needs to collapse because it's gynocentric, women are the problem, they shouldn't vote, and also like that, he's like, you're an asshole, and it's like, that's not an argument. Like, when I'm pointing out the problems are gynocentrism, female nature, and the reason why women shouldn't vote, and I don't know if I made this clear, let me just make it clear now. Women should not vote because they have a nature that favors protection and provision. They want to be taken care of by a man. Therefore, they will always support a large oppressive state with a massive redistributionist welfare program. And that destroys a country, a society, or whatever. They can't help it. It's in their nature. They want to be provided for by men. Therefore, they will always favor a state which redistributes men's money to them and protects them through a police state. So if you don't like the police state, if you don't like the welfare state, you need to take away the vote from women.
Yeah.
That is it. Like, you can't do it. But the thing is, once you give women the right to vote, you've passed the point of no return, because by definition, they're always at least 50% of the population, unless you have some like rash of some kind of disease that kills off your women. So once you give them the right to vote, you can't ever take it away, because now they're half the voting population. So now every program is just going to grow, and you can't reform it, you can't cut it, you can't do anything, because now you're attacking women. And then you notice that, like, especially in American politics, the second a politician brings out you're attacking women, all the women's ears perk up, regardless of party or affiliation. And they're like, oh, they're attacking women. Oh, you're trying to make me pay for my birth control? How dare you? And they will just dogpile on and vote for whoever's going to give them more free shit, because that's how women think. It's free shit to them because they don't pay the taxes. And they want a massive police state that's going to, because women don't care about a police state, because women aren't the ones getting shot by the police. So a police state is a good thing. A police state protects them. A welfare state provides for them. And you can't have those things and freedom. So really, you have two choices. You can either let women vote, or you can be free. Those are your choices. Pick one. And that's why women shouldn't vote, is because it means the inevitable loss of freedom for men. So in case I never made that clear before, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes, but I wonder if men, the majority of men, aren't happy to sacrifice freedom for female approval, because this is something I'm seeing, is that I always wonder, is it possible to actually enforce a patriarchal society permanently, or even in the long term, once things become affluent and once things become easy, because the men who don't thrive in that environment go over and side with the women, and then there's the mass majority, the mob, significantly outnumbers the men who thrive in a patriarchal society, the ones who are productive, the ones who can achieve.
Yeah. Okay. So goes into my whole magic of male scarcity thing. So what happens is when you have a patriarchal society at the beginning, it's because the male population is very unstable. You have war, you have disease, you have famine. There's too many women, not enough men. So the women submit to the patriarchy because they need the men to protect them and provide for them. So you'll have usually a ratio of 1 man for 4 women. And that's why in like the Bronze Age, men had like multiple wives. Now, the problem is, and it's not really a problem, but it is for this case, as those societies become more successful, as they become more stable, as they bring peace to their lands, and they start, cleansing disease and bringing food, and they become more affluent, the male population stabilizes. Now, and here's where gynocentrism comes in, and this goes in with my human society and egalitarianism video. So there's 2 ways. Men want reproductive success, so they have to acquire women. That's the only way they can achieve reproductive success. They can do it one of 2 ways. They can kidnap them, beat them, and rape them, which is what they do under a patriarchy, or they can pander to them and have the woman allow them to reproduce with her. Now, the former is fine if you have a lot of women, because you can kill 3 and still achieve reproductive success under a patriarchy because there's so many women. So if one of them won't let you rape them and you kill her, so what? The other 3 will take it as a warning and they'll let you rape them. But in a egalitarian society, you can't do that, because when you have basic parity between men and women, there's only a few women to go around, especially the desirable women. If you want a desirable woman and you're in an egalitarian society with laws, you can't just beat her and rape her. You're going to go to jail. So what you have to do is you have to pander to her. And that's when the gynocentrism and the feminism starts, because these men who want reproductive success, especially with desirable women, they will submit to the gynocracy. They will give in to her whatever she wants to get that reproductive success. So the only cure for that I see, there's 2 ways. One is war. You reduce the male population through war, and that reintroduces the patriarchy. Or we can create technological alternatives to women, where men can achieve reproductive success without women through cloning or the artificial womb or whatever.
Sex
because
bots.
Now that you have sex bots and holodeck orgies and all that fun stuff. If we have that, then men don't have to pander to the gynocracy. They can make their fortune, be a bachelor, clone themselves, have their own little clone son like Boba Fett, and if he turns out to be a fuck up, they can harvest his organs.
Yeah. Well, technology, I think the technology aspect of it is still pretty far away, at least from how I see it. I don't know. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
No, I don't either. I don't know if our societies have enough time, because right now we're already on borrowed time with the debt and all the other problems in our society. It's an open question about whether the technological advancement will happen in time, because once there's a collapse, all that advancement's going to stop. We're going to revert. I don't think we'll revert back to the Stone Age, but we're going to go back significantly. And it's kind of an open question. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that the technology arrives in time, but if it doesn't, it may have to set us back another cycle.
Or would you think that male birth control would be enough to sustain until we could develop the artificial womb or other forms?
No, that it would help, but it wouldn't solve the problem. It would be like chopping limbs down. What the male birth control does is it takes the monopoly of reproductive power away from women. Because right now, women control reproduction from beginning to end. The only thing a man can do is get a or wear a condom.
What I'm asking is the question, do you believe that if we got birth control in place for men, would it buy us enough time to develop further technologies, or do you think we're beyond the point of return even if we did get male birth control, and that'd be like slapping band-aids on a knife wound?
Yeah, well, it doesn't solve the primary problem is reproductive success. So a man needs a woman to achieve reproductive success. Birth control for men doesn't solve that problem. He still needs a woman for reproductive success. It does help the dynamics because now the man can defend himself against sperm jackers and shit like that. But it doesn't help him achieve reproductive success without a woman. And as long as you need a woman for reproductive success, and as long as there aren't a plethora of women, like if there was like the island of women, and there's just this endless supply of women, and you could just go to the island and pick one out like a car, there would be a patriarchy. Men wouldn't give a shit about women's feelings. They would just go buy their woman at Woman Island, and they would be happy. Well, but there's no Woman Island, so it might buy
us some time if it comes sooner than later. You know, it might buy us some time to reach that point of the technology. I mean, I would be a very happy father if my son, by the time he's old enough, could access his own form of birth control.
Well, what's happening with that birth control in Indonesia that you made a video about, Sirias?
Yeah.
It was some sort of herbal thing.
Yeah, herbal birth control. The doctor, his name is Professor Bambang, and I've contacted his faculty a number of times, but he has not returned my calls. So he won't contact me through email. He won't contact me on phone. He was even in Jakarta, like, I guess now 3 weeks ago, and I got his phone number from the faculty. I got a number. They said it was his hand phone, and I called and called and called. I couldn't get through, so I don't know. Maybe it wasn't even his number. I don't know. But unfortunately, I can't contact the dude, or he won't return my calls. So there's nothing I could do. If I could afford it right now, I would just fly straight to Surabaya. But unfortunately, because I lost my job and all that shit, it's just not possible right now. So I really just wanted to hear from his own mouth that this was a reality, you know. So I honestly couldn't say if there's any kind of progress. I just don't know. I don't know. Only thing I do know is that he did turn down an offer from some American company for like millions of dollars for the patent. He turned it down.
All right.
But
some things are better than money.
Yeah, well, male birth control is a great thing for men. I think the artificial womb would be a larger leap. Now, the problem with the artificial womb, it still requires a donor egg. You eliminate... What the
heck was that?
Okay.
Some kind of...
Well, no, I think that was my computer, I think.
Okay.
A little pop-up.
Well, yeah, so,
I didn't know it was that loud. Sorry.
It's all right.
Well, the artificial womb requires a donor egg. Now, you don't need a surrogate mother, which is good, but you still need a donor egg. So you still have women in the process. So I'm more, and this is obviously going to be generations away, but I'm more into, I think cloning is the preferred solution. Just like you have certain lizards that produce asexually and basically create exact copies of themselves. If we can get there, we just eliminate women from the picture entirely, and we just create clones of ourselves. Then fuck gynocentrism. We don't need women anymore. We don't need to pander to them. We don't need to give a shit about what they think, because we can achieve reproductive success on our own. And then that solves the problem. But that's science fiction at this point.
Yeah.
My question to you is that it would solve the problem, but would it solve the drives to still seek out women and still pander to women? Because in my opinion, it's the emotional and mental drives that men are keyed into. We want to get the gratification. We want to get the approval of women, and as much as the end goal is reproduction, that's not what's in our conscious mind or even in our subconscious mind. That's more of a biological drive. So would cloning actually prevent men from basically, even Dr. Warren Farrell said it once, that if women started favoring men who walked on their hands, men would be having competitions in the street for how far they could go.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to understand that, like, in all living things, reproduction is basically the chief goal of that organism's being. So all our emotions, they've all evolved a certain way to push us towards that. So we do seek companionship and we do seek sexual gratification beyond simply reproduction. In fact, that's why men have such a high sex drive in comparison to women, because if we didn't, we would actually look objectively like, do I really want children? And obviously, most men don't have sex to get a woman pregnant. They have sex because they want the sex. So, yeah, those instincts will still be there. Now, that's why, you have to also have sex bots and holodeck porn too. So, but I think I have no desire to get married and have a little family with little children running around, but I still watch porn, and it's all heterosexual. I like the ladies, and they're not bits, but I'm not going to mess around with one. So it's like, yeah, the desire is still there, but I don't want. I don't know. I know what you're saying.
I see what you're saying. That if we had the technology to clone, we would be able to satisfy the need in other ways, like through pornography, sex toys, or whatever.
I think sex robots are coming. Like, they already have very lifelike sex dolls.
Oh yeah, but they've also got really good robots in Japan. They've already got them reading the weather.
Well, the robots. I think what actually the newest thing is the virtual reality porn, where you put on like the Oculus Rift, and you watch like this. It's basically a porn video, but it's or the augmented reality. So you go to your bed, and it projects this woman onto your bed, and because you're wearing this headset, it looks like she's there, and you can actually walk around her because it's not even 3D modeled. It's done with like 50 different cameras, so it captures every angle. So you can walk around this girl, who, for all intents and purposes, is laying on your bed, and she's completely lifelike because you're wearing that virtual reality headset. And it's basically like being in the room with a woman, either getting pounded or masturbating or whatever. So it's as lifelike as porn can get. And then you also add in, they have these masturbatory kind of computer peripherals where you play a game or watch a video, and it basically goes on your penis like a fleshlight, and it syncs to the action on the screen. So you can be lifelike porn in 3D that you can interact with, and then there's like this peripheral that will basically you're having sex, and you can't see the peripheral. All you can see is the woman because you're wearing the virtual reality headset. And the advantage of that is you don't have to worry about the uncanny valley. With robotics and cybernetics, it's very difficult to make a conventionally human-looking android, because of all these subtle features in the face, like the eyes and everything. Every little subtle feature is very difficult to account for in a robot. So you're either going to have like something like C-3PO from Star Wars, which looks nothing like a human, and who wants to have sex with C-3PO? Or you're going to have like this creepy kind of mannequin. But with virtual reality, you can do that now. There already is virtual reality porn that's extremely lifelike. So that part is pretty much here now. So I'm not worried about the sex robots. I'm more worried about the cloning and getting there. I think that's the technology that's going to be generations away.
Yeah. Jay, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think birth control would be great, because there's a lot of men who can't control themselves when it comes to having unprotected sex. I think it would be absolutely great. And I think it also would help just keep women from controlling men through, like you said, childbirths. And I think a lot of women gain power from being able to control a guy through having his kids, and also being able to benefit from the government too, or being able to put him on child support. So I think it's more of keeping women from being able to control men too. So I think it'd be great to have more control for men.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see that. I'd like to see that be available, like I said, to my kid, my son. It would give him at least some kind of advantage.
You think they'll have something like that available for men in the next 5 years, 10 years? Maybe?
I think it's possible. I think it's very possible.
It's already available for men in India. They're still they're doing a sort of kind of open test thing, where men can go and get, vassal gel, or it's under a different name there. So they already have it available. It's just it's still kind of in a bit of a grey area, still being tested. They haven't reversed it yet, but they have successfully made men infertile for over 10 years now running. Now, I'm unfortunately going to have to bail on you guys and head off. I've got to take somebody to the airport.
Okay.
But it was absolutely great talking to you all, and yeah,
Okay.
have a good one.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for coming by.
Right, man.
Yeah, because there's, I mean, the pill that Six Senses was asking me about is a reality here in Indonesia. It's being developed by an Indonesian school, university, and they've already done successful test runs. I mean, they're testing men, so I mean, it does exist. Whether or not it becomes some kind of thing that you can get off the market, that's yet to be seen. Because there's a lot of politics in play, man.
Yeah, it is.
You know, giving men that much reproductive power is, I don't think a lot of people want to see that happen.
No, they don't, because then you can't control men anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, yeah, because women, like, if they want a baby, they'll lie. They'll just say, "Oh yeah, I'm on birth control. Go ahead, take your condom off."
Yeah.
They know they're ovulating. They know that they're not on birth control. But you know, when you're horny and you're ready to go, and you know, your sense goes down. Like you lose common sense when you're at the date.
Yeah, you do.
So yeah, you just fuck a raw dog, and then she tells you she's pregnant, and now you're fucked.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, as a man, you have absolutely no autonomy. Like the second that sperm leaves the tip of your dick, it's not yours anymore. There was actually a guy who's like a dentist, I think. A girl gave him a blowjob, spit it in a cup, whatever. Okay, so he leaves. She inserts the sperm into her pussy, gets pregnant, sues him for child support, and wins.
Jesus Christ.
And now he was like, "What the fuck? Like, she gave me a blowjob. I didn't consent to, you know, vaginal sex." And they said, "Well, when you ejaculated, that was an unconditional gift to her, so she could do whatever she wants with it."
Oh.
Now, but then, yeah, that's what the judge said. That's the precedent.
That's
now.
the world we live in.
Yeah, for women, like they got abortion, they could leave the baby at the fire station. They have all different kinds of ways. If they don't want to be a parent, they don't have to be a parent at all. And going back to our original kind of topic, all the single mothers, they're not victims. They chose to be, every single fucking one of them chose to be a single mother. Because we give women every opportunity to bail out.
Yep.
We have morning after pills, we got abortion, we got leave the kid at the fire station, whatever.
Adoption?
If they're adoption, like everything. Men have no autonomy, and then they get thrown in for losing their job. Like if you get, you have to pay so much child support. If you lose your job, they throw you in jail for having no job. Like how the fuck are you supposed to pay your child support with no job? But they'll throw you in jail anyway, and then now you lose your house because you're in jail for 90 days and can't afford and didn't pay your rent. Just fuck your whole life up for losing your job. Like you didn't even commit a crime. So that's what men face. But then women have every opportunity to, if they don't want a kid, they don't have to have the kid. But they keep the kid because of the money. And the thing, like if there was no such thing as if there was no welfare state and there was no child support, you would see all these women abandoning their kids. They don't give a shit about the kid. And that's why the kids turn out to be criminals. Because the mom doesn't give a shit about them and never did. To them, he was just a meal ticket. He was just a way to get money from the government or from the father, so she didn't have to get a job. And the kid, I mean, that's the way my mom treated me and my siblings. All my siblings have different fathers. I got 3 brothers and a sister, all have different fathers. And my mom was just a huge slut and just had kids so that she didn't have to get a job because she lived off of child support and welfare. And that was her life plan. And that's how women are. And like, I don't get, they're the problem. Like all the crime, you look at the crime, the drugs, the murder, it's all because you have these single mothers and they chose it. And that's the thing. They're not victims. Like this whole, I'm a single mother. Like this bullshit about these single mothers getting praise on Father's Day because they're pulling double duty. Fuck you.
That was bad, man. That was fucking bad. And
single mother. We need to shame single mothers. Stop praising them and clapping for them and acting like they're heroes. They're not heroes.
Yeah.
They're using the system, They're using their children to get money from men, and that's it. They don't fucking love their kids. If they loved their kids and they wanted to provide the best environment for their kids, their father would be there raising the kids with them.
Yeah.
The fact that they walked out on the father, never got married to the father, because first of all, if you're not married, like you look at the statistics, and you see the way especially single mothers. Now, I think single fathers actually do better. That's my hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
I think a man can teach a child to be an adult, but not a woman. A woman can't teach a child to be an adult. She can only turn an infant into a child.
Because she's not an adult herself, man.
Exactly, they're children themselves. You got to have it to teach it. So, my hypothesis is it's not two parents that make the difference. It's the father that makes the difference. If you got rid of the mother and replaced her with a nanny, you would still have well-rounded, adjusted children. But when you replace the father with the state, you have fuck-ups that sell drugs and shoot people.
Yep.
So, but that's the society we live in. We give mothers the kids and we just turn them loose, and we praise them for this. We praise them like they're doing some kind of heroic thing while they're just using these children to get money from the government and from men. And then we blame the men. We call them deadbeat dads because they have no money. Like, you're working 2 jobs, the state's taking all your money to pay child support, you lose a job, you can't afford to live, you get thrown in jail, lose your house, now you're homeless, and then everybody's shaming you, calling you a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fucking, this bitch over here she could have let the kid be adopted, she could have left at the fire station, she could have had an abortion, she could have taken the morning after pill. Every step of the way, she chose to keep the kid. And now my life is fucked. She's fucking this kid's life up, and no one gives a shit. But then as soon as that kid grows up and starts shooting people and selling drugs or something, then they're like, oh, where are the fathers? Like the same place they were on the street, because that's where you put them. You fuck their life up. And now and these kids are going to be fuck-ups too, and it's all the women's fault. But then you got these MRA assholes like, oh, you're just an asshole blaming the women. How dare you? Fuck you.
Yeah, I know. I know, man. And even when you present it to, I mean, it's so in your face, and I'm sure a lot of and I guess we mentioned this before. A lot of the problems when it comes with the black community is single mothers. You know, it's very big in that community.
And,
obviously,
and I think.
Go ahead, Jay.
No, I was gonna say that these communities are vastly catching up, because I'm seeing a lot of white and Hispanic single mothers talking about how they're independent and they can do things on their own. I'm like, oh shit.
Yep. Indeed, they are catching up.
Yeah, I think there's like a 20-year difference, because I know it started in the black community in the mid '60s, and I think it started in the white community. I want to say the mid '80s.
Possible.
Maybe 90s. So we're 20. Like looking at the black community, it's like looking into the future. For the white community, it's like 20, 25 years in the future. But that's what our future is. You can't escape it. Like you can solve it, but you can't escape it. That's where we're headed. So what are you going to do? This isn't a racial problem. It's the women. And then what annoys me is, so I present this evidence. Like, this is the problem with women. You got human nature, you got female nature, you got the welfare state, you got all these things. And then, like, this is what you have to do. You have to basically take control of the women. And you that is step one. Like, at the end of my last video, the one about the racism stuff, you got 3 steps. This doesn't apply to the black community. This applies to every community. 1, you have to reestablish patriarchy. Now, I know a lot of MGTOW are like, oh, traditionalism, patriarchy. No, they're not this. First of all, they're not the same thing. But second of all, MGTOW isn't a societal model. If you had a MGTOW society, it would basically last 1 generation, and then all the men would die with no children, and that would be the end of that society. Mm-hmm. So until we have cloning or something like that where men can reproduce asexually, we can't have a MGTOW society. It's not sustainable. Women have to be a part of it at some place. So the only alternative to a MGTOW society, because we lack the technology, is a patriarchy, where we just put our boot on women and say, fuck you, you're going to do what I say, because I'm bigger and stronger than you, and that's the way it is. But a lot of the egalitarians, and you notice a lot of these MRAs, like the guy who called me an asshole, beta as fuck. Just fucking little teenage beta male. he doesn't want to go back to a patriarchy, not because he cares about women, because he knows he would get his shit kicked in a patriarchy too, because he's so beta. So that's why the egalitarian coalition, you got the beta males and you got the women, both of them don't want a patriarchy because both of them suffer from it. So they kind of create this egalitarian coalition. But then once the egalitarian inevitably becomes gynocentric, and then the women kind of branch off like, hey, let's turn this into a matriarchy. And they will if you let them. So then you have some of the egalitarians kind of pushing back, saying, hey guys, we're supposed to be egalitarian here. And that's where the MRAs come in. And that's also where, like I was talking to Bernard Chapin about, like he was confused, like why are these leftist MRAs, like these MRAs that support big government and everything like that, why are they MRAs? Why are they? Because you can't be for freedom and for men, but then also support the government that is behind all these problems that men face. And it's because they're part of that egalitarian coalition. They were men who supported feminism until the third wave. They would have been right there with the suffragettes during first wave feminism, and they would have been marching with the hippies during second wave feminism. But now at third wave feminism, because now it's gone from egalitarianism to matriarchy, and now they're not on board anymore. So they're part of the MRM, but they're still leftists. Because they're still egalitarians. What you can't, an egalitarian society isn't sustainable because of our environment, and I went over this in my video.
Yeah.
So you have to have a patriarchy if you want a functional society.
Well, it appears that way.
Yeah, and that's sorry. Let me finish my thought. I know I'm very long-winded.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Step one, you got to reestablish the patriarchy, and that is the bedrock, because until you do that, you can't fix anything else. But that step, I mean, it sounds so simple. Oh, just reestablish the patriarchy. You basically have to like take away women's right to vote, and you got to do a whole bunch of other shit. That's really, I don't even see how that can happen in our modern society. I think we're just gonna have to wait for everything to collapse and kind of reestablish it naturally. But that's step one. And step two, get rid of the welfare state. Like, period. If you want to have like a very small kind of program for widows and orphans and people who are crippled and can't work, that's fine. But if you're like a regular adult that has nothing wrong with you and you can work and you just like don't feel like it, fuck you. You need to get a job.
Yeah.
Get rid of all the shit. And this is obviously, with a societal reset, this would happen anyway. Get rid of all the stuff that like prevents jobs from being created in the first place. So that will work itself out. But then the third one is you need to have personal responsibility. And that's kind of like you have to put away the tribalism, the trying to blame other groups for your problems, and you have to kind of fix yourself. And that's what I think is the whole thing about MGTOW is self-actualization, is, figuring out what you want. Because that's the biggest thing, is when you decide to be a MGTOW and you're like, okay, I'm not going to live my life for women. I'm not going to live my life to support anyone but myself, because that's really what men are trained to do. That's how we get our worth in society, is what we provide to society and for women. So if you decide that you're not going to live your life by that standard anymore, now you need to think to yourself, okay, what am I going to do with my life? If I'm not going to live my life for anyone else, what am I going to do with it? So then that becomes self-actualization, when you decide what you're going to live your life for.
Yeah.
So you do those three things. This applies to every society, every community, every race, and every culture. If you do those three things, you have a successful, productive society. If you have an egalitarian society with a massive welfare state and tribalism, you're going to collapse. It's inevitable.
Well,
So,
I don't think step one is plausible. Like, I don't think you can reestablish the patriarchy. I would in fact say that it might be easier to reestablish it if you start with step two.
Well, but you can't. You're never going to get rid of the welfare state with women voting, because the welfare state and feminism go hand in hand. It's one of the indicators that you're in a feminist phase, is when you have the establishment of a welfare state. Because men don't need welfare. In fact, we don't even get welfare. Even the men who need welfare don't get welfare. Mm-hmm. Well, the welfare state exists for women. It's what allows them. It creates that false abundance. It allows women to assert themselves, because as long as they need men to survive, like if you didn't have a welfare state and women knew that if they need men to earn the money and bring home the bacon, or they're going to starve to death, they are going to be very respectful to those men. They're going to suck their dick just the way they like it. There's always going to be a nice hot sandwich waiting for them when they get home, because they know that if they get thrown out on their ass, they're done, because there's no one else to take care of them.
Right.
They need the family, they need the men. But then when you insert the welfare state, this is exactly what happened in the black community, where they were paying women additional money if they didn't have a man in the house.
Fuck.
And this still happens to this day. In fact, okay, so if you apply for food stamps and you get so much money in food stamps, depending on the size of your family, if you're a single mother with the same amount of, like, let's say you have 2 kids. So you're a mom and a dad with 2 kids and you're poor. So you have 4 people in your household and you're all broke, unemployed, everything. Like you can't, neither one of you have a job, but there's 4 of you, but you're together. You get so much money in food stamps. If you're a single mom with 3 kids, same household size, nobody's working, same income level, you get more money because you don't have a man living in the house. They pay you to kick the man out of the house. And
Well,
this started.
Okay, let me interject here. That itself, okay, women are always going to vote for that, right? They're always going to vote for that. But isn't it possible that the system, regardless of the woman's vote, could just eliminate that?
Well, I mean, they're eventually going to run out of money. Now, you see what's happening in Greece, where the people are voting, and they're like, no, we will not accept austerity. Like, the government tried to basically cut spending, and the people voted them out.
Mm.
And they're basically demanding, give us more free shit, and we don't want to pay for it, and we don't want cuts, and we don't want to do this. So now the German government is like, okay, if you want us to bail you out, you're going to have to accept these terms. And if you don't, your government is going to collapse. And the Greek people are voting, and according to the polls last time I checked, because I'm actually very interested in how this plays out. If they choose collapse, which I'm pretty sure they will, because that's what the pollings are indicating, they are choosing collapse over saving their society by cutting any spending. Wow. They would rather go down in flames than cut welfare. And this is an entire nation. And they're actually threatening the EU. What they're threatening to do is take all the refugees from Syria, give them Greek passports, and flood Europe with a bunch of Syrian refugees.
What?
Yeah, they're basically saying, if you don't give us this money, we're going to flood Europe with all these Syrian refugees and give them Greek passports. So that's the kind of bullshit they're doing. Now, here's what's going to happen. It's not going to end well for Greece. Their government's going to collapse. They're just going to run out of money, and they're either going to print a ton of money like Zimbabwe did, where the money becomes worthless and you can't buy anything with it, or they're just going to stop paying people anything, and then it's just going to be anarchy. And eventually, someone's going to take over, and it's going to be bad. And all these people who think that the good times aren't going to stop and they're going to vote, all they're going to do is just going to take their votes away. They're like, okay, you assholes, now nobody can vote. Like, it's going to be like a dictatorship or an oligarchy or something like that. Because it has to be. When you have people who are that petulant, that are just voting for death and destruction, you just have to say, fuck you, you're done. Like, we're not all going to die and starve to death because you don't want to get a job. So now there are people who are, oh, democracy, no. And then it could play one of several ways. You could have Greek just collapse and kind of come up with a new kind of government. You could have Germany invade them, take all their shit to pay back their debts, which I would think would be poetic. If Germany just invaded Greece, took all their shit to pay back all the money they owe, and just rolled out and just left all the Greeks just destitute. Or Russia is talking about extending a bailout plan for Greece if they would separate from NATO and join the federation with Russia. Now, the thing is Russia does not fuck around. If you owe Russia money, they're like the loan shark state. Like if you owe the bank money, they're gonna sue you or whatever. But if you owe the mob money, they're gonna like break your kneecaps and shoot your family type of thing.
Right.
So when they're gonna get in bed with Russia, but they have no intention of paying back their debts. They owe too much money. So if Russia bails them out, they basically sold their soul to Russia, and Russia's going to get their money back one way or another. And it's really not going to end well for Greece no matter what they do. But it's just fascinating to see when you have a society choosing this path. Like, they can see, like, your country is going to collapse, and there is no option that ends well for you. Like, this one ends in slavery, this one ends in just destitution, this one ends in conquest. So these are your choices. Like, you've passed all of the exit signs up until this point, and now you have no good options. And they're just trugging along. Like, I don't know if it's just denial. I think it is just denial. They don't think that it's really going to happen. They think that, like, it just can't. Like, I don't know what their thought process is. They don't think the rules apply to them.
Well, do you think are the men voting for that as well?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, you got to understand that as societies, and I went into this in my video like 2 videos ago, when societies become more and more gynocentric and more feminist, they become more effeminate. All the masculine men are driven away. Like, you see Nico Chowski, he's from Greece, and he works in the UK as a doctor. Mm-hmm. This is what you see. When you have people leave. Like, if I could leave the United States and go live somewhere, that if there was some like Gulch or underwater city of Rapture, I would be there. I would fucking leave today and I would go be there. But there's no place for me to go. But if I lived in like a third world country or a second world country, I would come to the West because there's more opportunity, there's more jobs. So you have basically the masculine men, the doers, the thinkers, the achievers. They leave the country. So then the people who are left are like the effeminate people. They don't give a shit. The betas and stuff like that. So they're down with the program. So you really can't save it. This is the problem. Like, once a society has purged itself of masculinity, it's done. It's either going to be conquered by a more masculine culture, or it's going to collapse, or it's going to devolve into a primitive state. It's one of those. And none of those are good, but that's the consequence of having a monocentric, egalitarian society.
Yeah. Well, God, maybe that's maybe what's happening over there in Greece is a little bit of what might happen in North America later.
Yeah, it will. But the problem is it's weird because we've had states go bankrupt in the United States. Like, we've had to bail out states, usually because of pension funds and all that stuff. And, it's happened on a very limited scale. But Greece is like, think of an entire state going bankrupt. It would probably still get bailed out, but the states don't have a lot of sovereignty. A state can't secede from the country. Whereas Greece, because the EU isn't really a country, it's just kind of an agreement between countries. Mm-hmm. When Greece exits the euro and gets out of the EU, it would basically be the equivalent of like Texas leaving the United States and becoming its own country. Mm-hmm. And the last time states tried to do that, we had a civil war. So countries take that very seriously when states try to leave. But with Europe, it's not a country, so they don't have any authority to make them stay. They can only use economic blackmail to try to convince them to stay. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be interesting how things play out. I think that there's 3 things I'm looking at. I'm looking at the herbivore men in Japan, because they're kind of the canary in the coal mine when it comes to how the government will respond to MGTOW.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the black community to see how gynocentrism and how feminism destroys the community, because it's spreading everywhere, but it's really bad there. So that's kind of like the future. Whatever happens to the black community is basically going to happen to other communities in a decade or two anyway. And then I'm looking at Greece to see how an actual collapse, a no-shit collapse of a country, what happens. Because it hasn't happened in years.
Long time.
We haven't had a country just no-shit collapse since like World War I, since the fall of like the Persian Empire.
Yeah.
So, or I guess the Soviet Union. But it really kind of broke apart. I don't know what's going to happen. It will be interesting. But yeah, if based on how all those 3 things play out, I'm going to have a good kind of working model about what to expect in the future.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, well, we've come up on an hour and a half, so I kind of want to wind it down. Maybe we can just finish off. Jay, you got anything you want to say about the topics we've discussed today? Jay? There.
Hear me?
Yeah. Hey, there you are, man. We couldn't hear you for a bit.
Yeah, I thought because you said Jay, and I was saying, hey. He was like, hello, is it Jay? And I was like, yeah, I'm here, man.
Okay. Yeah, it's hour and 30 minutes, so I want to wrap it up. TFM, why don't you finish your thought, and then I'll give the floor to Jay to kind of give his closing thoughts.
All right, yeah, let me restart because I know we kind of broke off there.
Okay.
So I think there's all the different groups. You know, you got the TFLers, you got the moderate MGTOW, you got the extreme MGTOW, you got the people from different races and cultures trying to kind of bring in, I don't even think they're trying. Some of them might be trying to subvert MGTOW to kind of build their own thing, but I think some of them.
That's what.
But I think some of it is just like they have these beliefs, and MGTOW is very open. There's a very low bar to cross to basically call yourself a MGTOW.
Yeah.
So I think they come into the community, and they have these additional beliefs, and then they kind of like throw them out there to see who bites. And if nobody bites, they go away or they leave or whatever, and that's fine. I think that, and I'd rather them be in the community and learn a little bit while they're here than just like close ranks and start, like you were saying, like go on like a crusade of purification to kick out all the fakers and all that shit. I'd rather stay an open community with no leaders, no hierarchy, no rules or whatever. Just let people say whatever they want, leave, come and go as they please, and I think that actually makes our community stronger because it allows us to test our ideas against each other and be checked by our peers.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, that's my thought.
Jay, anything you want to say about what we've discussed today before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just want to say that, MGTOW, I still believe that it stands for something. I just believe that the people who laughed at it and ridiculed it are now the ones trying to build off of it. And I think that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing people trying to build off of MGTOW who shouldn't be. And you know exactly who they are. They were able to hide in comment sections. Now they're being a little bit more vocal, and we know exactly who some of these people are. And also to touch on society, I believe that in America, especially society, they're building an effeminate communities of men, especially in like the black and some other ones. You see a lot of effeminate men who are being the loud voices. You see it in the media. The effeminate men are trying to be leaders now. I think that's the worst thing that could ever happen, is an effeminate male thinking that he can lead. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for the talk. It was great. We've done an hour and a half. I got to go make some breakfast for my kid, get on with the day. So thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it.
Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Take care of yourselves.
All right.
Bye.
You too.
TV sucks.